I have a goal to help 100,000 Kiwis improve their financial literacy. Generate KiwiSaver scheme has sponsored Keep the Change to help me reach more people and make this a reality. Cheers to Generate. Head to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to find out more. Welcome back. You are listening to another episode of the Keep the Change podcast. And today we are going to learn about something that I think a lot of people probably don't even realize is happening out there. So today we've got Claire Bailey from Sorted in Schools in the studio to teach us and educate us around what is happening in the schools already when it comes to financial literacy. So thanks for joining us.
Kia ora, thanks for having me.
I think we'll start with the end in mind, and that I want to achieve out of this that more Kiwi realise that actually there are some resources out there for teachers and students alike so that they can learn more about finances and financial capability, because I think that the general sort of narrative is, it'd be good if this was all taught in schools, but even unbeknown to me, there is something going on and there are plenty of resources. So I thought we could pick your brains on how it all works. So maybe to start with, do you just want to go through what it is that you do in your role?
Yeah, sure. So I am a learning specialist and I work for Te Ara Ahunga Ora Retirement Commission. And a lot of what we do actually relates to financial capability, because we want New Zealanders to arrive at retirement in good financial shape. So as I said, I am a learning specialist. I work within the learning team. We have a wonderful website called Sorted in Schools, and we provide free resources which are available for all New Zealand schools. They are aimed at students in high school, so from year 9 to 13. If you're not familiar with the years, that's students aged 13 to 18. I'm very lucky in my job because I get to work with teachers all over the country and help them with teaching financial capability. So I provide professional development for teachers to upskill them. I love to help them with their planning and tell them how they can teach their students about money, and instill an interest or a curiosity about financial education in their students so that their students will go on, hopefully, to make good decisions throughout their lives.
Nice one. When I was at school, I think I did math, statistics, calculus, economics, accounting, probably not surprising, right? Geography. So, and then I'd get credits, I think, just trying to think back to how it went. But so you can get credits by learning these modules?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So we do have resources for year 9 and 10 students, so they don't have any credits attached, but we do have some assessment materials that teachers can use to teach their students in their classrooms, which offer NCEA credits. And those resources cover things like personal income and how you can increase your personal income over the course of your life. It's got information about things like different life stages and life events and how your relationship with money can change over the course of your life. It has resources about budgeting, for example, and things like financial goal setting, which is a really cool one to do, I think, for students to learn about how they can obviously plan to achieve their goals and manage their money so that they're able to do what they want to do in their lives. There are also some other assessments about investments, and the investment ones go into obviously teaching kids about KiwiSaver from a young age, as well as other types of investments, and that does include property investment. And then we have some assessments which go into protecting yourself and being insured and things like that.
Wow. So practicality-wise, do the teachers pick those types of modules or does the student pick it? How does that piece work?
Yes. So that's part of my job, I guess. I often work with teachers to help them pick the right modules for their students. And we know that every school community is different. Every class is different. So what the teacher chooses one year might be different from what they choose another year for a different class. So yeah, it's up to the teacher to choose, and then they would create a course based around whatever modules they want to cover with their own class, we do try and keep our assessments, not our assessments, but our materials really flexible so that they're adaptable for different school contexts. And we work with the teachers to help them plan what's best for their learners, because teachers know their students best.
Nice. I'd imagine some of the teachers probably get a couple of lessons when working through some of these modules and teaching them too.
Absolutely. And I have some really interesting conversations with teachers who go, oh my goodness, do you know what I just learned from doing that assessment? And it's quite cool, actually, because you can see that they're actually sometimes learning along with their students. And that's really valuable for students too, to go, oh, okay, actually, my teacher is not the expert in this, but sometimes you can have that learning experience together. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, there's a good saying that you only really learn something if you can teach it.
Yes.
And yeah, I'd imagine that for some teachers, they probably wouldn't want to get into this area because it's probably not their interest. But for those that are being curious and playing in that space, I'm sure they're probably, getting some great lessons as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it can be a daunting topic to teach, I think, if you don't feel confident in yourself with your own finances, or if you didn't learn about finance at school either. So I talk to a lot of teachers who do feel a bit nervous about teaching it and do need a bit of support. And so that's where it's quite good that we've created the resources and they don't have to come up with the content themselves. So they can take those materials and use them and know that our resources contain trusted information, which they can pass on to their students.
Yeah, because I think it's easy for all of us to say, oh, we should be teaching people financial literacy at a younger age, right? Like, yeah, great, in an ideal world. But if teachers aren't confident in teaching it, and then the parents aren't either, then it's pretty hard to just say, well, blame it on the parents, blame it on the the teachers, for instance. So I think it's going to be a massive joint effort as a country to upskill everybody in this space. And
that's exactly right. And we do find that there's a big difference in, I think, the young people who have someone in their lives who can teach them about money, or a role model that they can look up to who is good with money, or someone that they can go to if they get into trouble with money and need a bit of advice. Not every young person has that in their lives, and that's where teachers actually can have a huge impact on their students to give them that support from a young age when they really need it.
Yeah, I was very lucky at high school where I did economics and accounting, and I think it really helped with my curiosity about how the economy worked, how money worked, and those sorts of things. And I've obviously gone into an accounting career, but I do remember that in my economics class we were learning, or it might have even been accounting actually, we were learning about the stock market and had sort of a fake account and whatnot. And I can still remember back to being in that room where everyone's kind of picking their stocks and you're just a bit more involved in what's happening out there. And then you leave school, and for some people it wouldn't have been their thing, but obviously for me it was that thing that piqued my curiosity, and then you carry on with it.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about this topic, actually. It's practical, it's real life learning, and teachers can bring it to life. Doing kind of a simulation like that, or a project where you're learning about the stock market and looking at trends in the stock market, and you can apply it in so many ways. You can teach it in a maths class, you could teach it in a business class, and it's just, it's real. And so students are more engaged with that when they can see the practical application. And students aren't just learning about money, they're learning about the world around them. And I think one of the things that I hope for students is that actually we're not just teaching them about this at school, but filling them with curiosity and a sense that this is a lifelong learning journey. We don't just stop learning about money at any point, because your money needs change as you get older. And I guess because our resources align to Sorted, which is obviously financial information and tools and calculators and things which adults can use, then we hope that as students go on into their lives, they will keep learning about money, wherever that is, whether it's on the Sorted website or somewhere else. But also I hope we're giving them the tools to understand, what information they can trust when it comes to money and things like that, because there is a lot of information out there, but we want people to keep learning about it throughout their lives.
Too many of us signed up to a KiwiSaver plan without much thought. And signing up is great, but if you've never got advice before, you could be missing out. Your KiwiSaver account could become one of your biggest assets over your lifetime. That's why getting expert advice early and ensuring you're in the right fund is so worthwhile. Generate have a team of KiwiSaver advisors available to help. Head to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to book a no obligation meeting. They can even come to you. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns. I saw something really cool recently actually from a UFC fighter, and he was explaining that how to his family he would say, well, I'm just going to be a fighter, so I don't need to worry about other subjects and things like that. And he said his family were very supportive, but at the same time, they're like, that's not really how it works in the real world. And basically he was then explaining how as he got into fighting, he then realized the money's not just there. I'm still going to have to go and get a job and make sacrifices and then figure out how the money comes to me. And I think there's that. I hear that a lot actually, where parents will say about their children at school how they might want to be a YouTuber or whatever, and they think that's what I'm going to do for a job. But we forget that, they probably don't realize yet if we say they're not in the real world, but then they get out of school and then you have that realization of, okay, you don't just become a YouTube star and there's all this money coming in. You've actually got to do something to make it happen, or the UFC fighter or whatnot. So I think if we can bring forward some of those lessons about the real world, if we want to call it that, then, they can probably then get started a bit sooner or start thinking about saving earlier.
Absolutely. And I know, as you said, a lot of business and economics teachers do pick up the topic of financial capability because it's a really good fit. And, you've got a lot of students who are going to go on to be entrepreneurs, and they're not going to do the same job throughout their lives, and they're probably not just going to have a 9-to-5. So that's where they need to learn how to actually manage their money as it's coming in. And then we've got other resources like things about tax. We worked with Inland Revenue to create some resources about tax, because if you're running your side hustle, then you also you need to know a bit about tax as well. Are
these resources available for the parents to get involved in any way as well?
So our resources are mostly focused on teachers using them in the classroom. There are some resources that parents could obviously use with their kids. We've got some sort of things like little online interactives and things like that, and we've got some resources for older kids, school leavers, that parents could work on with their students, and that's got things sort of like information about going flatting and buying a car and funding study and things like that. And I think what's really valuable about those, actually, even if you don't go into using those resources in detail with your kids, I just think it can be a good way to start those conversations about money, because can be hard to talk about money, and sometimes parents kind of don't know how to talk about it with their kids. But whether you're going on Sorted in Schools or going on the Sorted website, that can kind of just open up the conversations and open up the dialogue to talk about money with young people.
From the work you've done in your role, do you have any insight as to maybe why it's hard for people to talk about money, or it might even be personal opinion?
We were actually talking about this earlier today, and I speak to a lot of teachers who tell me that their students want to hear quite personal information from them about money. And of course they do. Students want to know what we've done as adults, what we've done with our monies, and what mistakes we've made. And I think, because we've all made money mistakes in our life, but I think sometimes that I feel like maybe that's kind of where a part of that stigma comes from, that we could always look back and think, oh man, I really messed that up. I wish I'd done that differently, or I wish I'd known more. And so sometimes I think that's where it comes from. We don't almost want to talk about our mistakes. But it's actually valuable for young people to hear about our mistakes because it shows that we're human, that we make mistakes, and that they will probably make mistakes too. But when they're at high school and they might have a bit of money coming in, that's when they can actually make quite low risk mistakes rather than when you're older and you're earning more money and you've got larger investments and things like that. So, I think that's a part of it. And I think sometimes we don't know how to bring it up, and it's a very personal subject, and we've all kind of learnt different ways of dealing with our money, and we don't know if we're right or we're doing it the right way or we're doing it the wrong way. I'm always fascinated to hear what people do with their money, and I love talking about money, so I find it fascinating.
Yeah. So go back to the start for you then. What was your background prior to getting into this role?
So I was a high school teacher. I was actually an English language teacher, so nothing to do with business or economics or anything like that. I didn't learn about money at school at all. I started learning about money in my 20s probably, and it was only because I was visiting my dad at Christmas time, and my brother was there, and he had a copy of the Barefoot Investor book, and I just picked it up on the summer holidays and started reading it and was fascinated. It's such an interesting topic. I'd never been taught, and once I started learning about it, I wanted to learn more, and so I started reading everything that I could get my hands on. I started listening to podcasts and doing all these different things, and then I started in this role 2 years ago, and I was just looking for something different. I kind of applied for it on a whim. I didn't really think I would get it, and I did. And here I am, and I'm so lucky because we work with a team who is so passionate about teaching young people, about teaching New Zealanders about money, just so that people can achieve their goals and dreams, and then live the lives that they want to live, and then arrive at retirement and have the retirement that they want to have when they get there.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think sometimes it's just as much about avoiding things, helping people avoid things by then having that education of like, oh, don't go down that path.
Yeah.
Because that's what's down there.
Yes.
Yeah, rather than having to learn it for yourself. And I think that's what you were saying before about using our own mistakes to use those as stories and teaching and telling other people, so that then other people feel that, I often with the content that we do of Keep the Change basically try to make a point of like, I don't know everything, I've made heaps of mistakes, etc. Because then I think that's how we break down the stigma about money, because I think a lot of content around money is then tied back to success, and we then assume that they must not have made any mistakes, but we hear that they did. However, they just seem so far ahead that, I probably don't want to say what I'm doing, because then I might be a bit embarrassed about where I'm at or mistakes I've made or how much I've got in a bank account or whatever. And that's where I think it becomes highly emotional, rather than it just being a topic of, it's just another tool. Realistically, it's a means of exchange, and it's in our life every single day.
Yes.
So if we can learn about it from a younger age, then we're just going to compound those lessons.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And young people also, they're so lucky because they've got the gift of time.
Yes.
So obviously to learn about things like investing and compound interest and things when you're young, when you start working, that's an amazing gift that we can give to young people.
Yeah. So Sorted in School's been going for since 2019, is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. So obviously Sorted has been around for a long time. Sorted in Schools started in 2019, and obviously the Retirement Commission saw a need to start educating people about money from a younger age. We also have the website Te Whaihua Kia Ora, which provides resources in multimedia for multi-medium education written in te reo Māori for kura to use.
Okay.
And so that came a little bit later.
Yeah. So I'd imagine you were just getting some momentum, or sort of Sorted in Schools would have been, and then we hit lockdown, and that probably made it pretty hard to push on with the progress of Sorted in Schools.
Yes. I wasn't around then. I started a little bit after that, but I think what was hard is obviously it was quite new then, and one of our problems is that we have these great resources and this great website, and what we want to do is just spread the word. We just want as many people to know about it as possible, as many teachers, as many schools. And then, of course, COVID hit and we couldn't go in and visit schools. And, you know, a lot of what we do, we go to teacher conferences and events and things like that and speak there so that we can let teachers know that we exist and just have a big chat about the topic of financial education. So we could obviously no longer do that. So we really are starting to catch up now, I think. We've been able to go to the conferences and events and visit schools and talk to teachers and things like that. So we're definitely seeing an uptake in the use of our resources.
Yeah. Do you think that part of the uptake as well might just be the way that the economy is at the moment? It feels like a lot more people are talking about money. I speak at a school once a year. And I asked these lads, you know, hands up if you know what inflation was. And I kind of assumed that no one would put their hand up that I'd interested. And just about over half of them put their hand up. And I thought, wow, you know, either they're learning about that here or they're hearing about it, reading about it, or their parents, you know, are talking about it inside their household. So do you think maybe some of that is we actually have, as much as it's tough to be in this economic environment now, there's some positive in terms of people are going to take learning about this stuff maybe a little bit more seriously than they have previously?
Yes, absolutely. We know that, of course, a lot of families are finding it really tough at the moment. So money, of course, is a topic of conversation at the moment. And so it can also be a source of a lot of stress and anxiety. So yes, I agree with you. I think that parents are talking about it at home and kids are picking up on that. And of course, they would have heard the word inflation and thought, okay, yeah, what is that? We actually did a survey of some students to find out what they wanted to learn about, and inflation was one of those things. And I think that's the reason. They hear it in the news, they hear adults talking about it, they're picking up on it, and they want to know what it is and why does the price of something go up and down. That doesn't how when you're a teenager, you just want to be able to make sense of that. And again, that's just trying to understand the world around you. So yeah, I do think that's a really good one. And I, in my experience as an English language teacher, I taught a lot of students from migrant families, and I know that particularly over COVID, a lot of those kids were going out and picking up extra hours at work because they needed to help support their families too. So of course, when they are working to help provide for the family, they become part of that money conversation as well because their income is helping support their family, helping to support their family, their provide for their household too.
They probably learned about taxes pretty bloody quickly through that process too. Yeah, I remember when I first started earning income and then got taxed, and then I think I'd asked my sister to help, and so my mum was like, well, you need to give her some of that because she helped you. And I think I was crying by the end of it. I'm like, where's it all gone? How many bags of fruit bursts can I get with this? Freaking out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's secondary schools only, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Cool. And can students log into this themselves? I was on the website having a little bit of a play around. I was going to fake my age or something and see what I could get into. But can the students themselves get into some of these modules, you know, from home and whatnot, rather than it just going through the teacher? Or I was a little bit confused as to how it worked.
Yeah, so it is designed more for teachers to sign up. The students don't need to sign up actually. So what I usually encourage teachers to do is to so there's a range of resources. So there are things like worksheets and student booklets that teachers can use for in-class teaching. So they can download those documents and share them with their students, of course. And then there are other things like there are online interactives, and we've even got some games, we've got videos and things like that. So the best way for teachers to give those to their students is just to share the links and things, and a lot of schools use Google Classroom and things like that. So that's how I recommend for teachers to use it. There are some things, yes, that students will be working directly off the website, and that's things like the interactives, and there are games and things that they can do. And for example, our new resource for school leavers, students would be working directly on the website to use that, but usually the teacher shares the link with them. Students don't need to sign up.
Okay. Cool. I read on the website as well that 80% of school leavers said that they wish they learned more about money in school. Yeah. It's over 80%, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're hearing. I was at a conference for careers teachers last year or the year before, actually, and they had a panel of students and talking about their experience. They were school leavers that already left, but they were talking about their experiences, and financial education was certainly one of the things that came up as something that they wish they'd learnt more of in school. And I mean, I know from talking to my friends and things, when I told people that I'd taken up this job, so many people said to me, that's so great. Wow, I wish I'd learned that at school. I didn't even know that existed, So, I hear a lot of that.
And I suppose it hasn't existed realistically previously. Is there any, look back into the past as such, and I know that's not always helpful, but is there any chat around like why we've been so slow as a country to maybe try and get this done at scale or pay more attention to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is becoming, as you've said, it is becoming more of a popular topic now. And I think when Sorted in Schools started, there was quite a big gap. There are lots of other providers coming along now, which is great. And they offer, I guess there are quite a few different offerings. We've got things where students can sign up and work on their own. We've got some things that are more for parents. We've got sort of some programs where people come in and talk to students. And I think that's really cool because that means students are kind of getting some financial education, but in a lot of different forms.
Yeah. I wonder, partly trying to figure out what it might be, is that going back to something you said earlier, money's not really a topic that you just learn once and go like, oh, I've done that now. Because usually once you learn something, it then opens the next chapter, then the next one, probably like most subjects, but you do realise that it is actually a lifelong subject. And, I had this conversation yesterday with someone who was asking about me speaking somewhere, and I said, I'm probably not your guy for your audience because most of those people sound like they're in wealth protection mode. And so they're probably not going to be too interested in what I'm talking about at the other end, where my audience is normally thinking about wealth generation and growth and things like that. And so, no matter whether you don't have money or you do have money, you still need to keep learning about it because everything's changing every day with all the things that then feed into it with inflation and different forms of budgeting and what your life looks like. And then all of a sudden you have, a health issue that you hadn't thought about. So then there's some more chapters down that space.
Yes.
So I wonder if part of it is just the fact that we haven't wanted to accept that this is sort of something that doesn't go away and we have to pay attention to it for, a fair bit of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of it is, can I guess be something that maybe goes in the too hard basket, and maybe that has also happened to a certain degree with financial education. And I think a bit of it is kind of where do you start and how do you deliver it? And as you said, it's the best way to teach, even to teach young people, is obviously to build on their skills over a period of time. So often, delivering kind of a one-off or talking to them about one thing, well, that can be great because it might get them really interested in a topic and they might go on and carry on learning about it outside of the classroom. Actually, kind of what you want to be doing is kind of teaching a bit here and then building on it, and hopefully so that they're learning about it in different ways in different places and they're building on those skills as you go. And it's the same when you're an adult, right? You want to keep kind of like building on the information that you have, and you don't want it to be too hard or too challenging to start with, because that's sort of what puts you off a topic and you think, okay, I don't understand, this is too hard, and then maybe you feel some shame that you don't understand. But, everyone starts in a different place. Whether you're a young person or whether you're an adult, we're all kind of come with a different kite of tools that we're starting with, and we come sort of with our own past experiences and knowledge, and often I think we come along with things that we don't even know that we know, especially when it comes to money. And it's just things that you've sort of picked up on because, as you said, young people are paying attention to what adults are saying and what's going on around them, even when you don't realize. So they're kind of like absorbing things as you go and learning that way too.
Have you got any examples of schools that have really grabbed onto this, and you don't need to name them, but just what they've done to really implement it and do it well?
Yeah, absolutely. I am lucky because I get to go and talk to teachers a lot. I was in Wellington just last week, and I went out to visit a school out there and was talking with a teacher who is redesigning a program. Actually, they did have a financial capability program at that school, and she really wanted to make it practical, make it real life learning, make it something that students could. She was teaching senior students, so she wanted that learning to be something that students could start applying in their lives straight away, something that was relevant and engaging. So she was teaching them some of the assessments that I mentioned earlier. She said to me that she was just really passionate about helping students make their money work for them. And she was really interested in teaching them about financial growth.
Yeah.
And so she was teaching them a lot about KiwiSaver. And so she'd sort of gone onto the Sorted website and things. She'd been teaching them, obviously, what is KiwiSaver, and then educating them about different fund types and getting them onto the Sorted calculators and things like that to help them figure out, okay, so if you start when you're 18 and then you get your money out when you're 65, this is how much money you can have. And so if you're a teenager and you're going, oh, okay, wow, so all right, so I just kind of have to sign up, and then I just kind of have to keep, chipping away at it through the course of my life, and this is what I can have. Like, that's a really amazing lesson for them.
Yeah.
And they were doing other things like they did the Sorted money personality quiz and things like that, and she said that started at just doing those sorts of things as a class, and the teacher did it with them, and she said it opened up some really great conversations. It turned out I think most of them had almost the same money personality. So it was, they were able to talk about kind of perhaps their strengths and their weaknesses within that money personality. And that's a good one, I think, because it helps you to kind of, again, think, okay, you don't have to be one thing, you don't have to be just a saver or just a spender. Everyone is different in the way and with their relationship to money, but it's how you make that relationship with money work for you. We've got some schools in Auckland who are using Sorted in schools as well. I remember talking to one teacher from a school here, and she had been educating her students, and she had one of her students come to her and say, I've run into a bit of a problem. I've got myself into a bit of debt. And it wasn't too much, but obviously for the student, it had been causing quite a bit of stress and anxiety, as we know that debt can. And she was able to sit down with the student and just go through some debt management strategies and help them make a plan to get out of debt, which didn't take too long, but it just shows the impact that teachers can have on students to just be that person be the person that a student can go to if they need help and they don't have anyone else in their lives that they can go to. And just that student feeling comfortable enough with that teacher that they could go to her with a problem probably made an impact in that student's life. And next time that student hopefully gets themselves into that situation, if they do, they'll be able to kind of apply some of those strategies as well. And so we see teachers from a range of subjects who are interested in teaching financial capability. It gets picked up a lot by maths teachers. So I talk to a lot of maths teachers who are really enthusiastic about teaching financial capability, which is cool. And it's quite a good fit with maths, of course. So they teach things like tax, about calculating GST, about calculating interest, about things like profit and loss. And again, it makes maths, it becomes practical, becomes a real life skill as well. Seen quite a few teachers who work in careers spaces and careers, pathways, life skills. And they see this as a really valuable topic for their students, especially as they're preparing to leave school and maybe go out on their own. They also, this is a time where students might be considering taking on debt if they're going to borrow money for study and things like that. Or they might be going out and getting ready to buy their first car. And so that can be a really valuable time to actually catch students before they leave school. But they are preparing to start making some quite big life decisions that can, have a flow-on effect down the road. And then, of course, like you said, we get lots of business and economic teachers who are kind of teaching product design and product development and learning about business, again, learning about tax. And these are our entrepreneurs of the future, and they need to have money skills.
Definitely, yeah. We need to encourage them as well, because I think they're going to be a big subset of the population that will help solve a lot of the problems into the future as well, and they'll create solutions and they'll figure out how to make them sustainable and profitable and things like that. And it can start with that curiosity getting piqued at school, right? So
absolutely,
yeah. I like the story about the student who was brave enough to go to their teacher and say, hey, put my hand up, I'm in a bit of trouble here with this debt, etc. Because I think there'd be a lot of Kiwis today that are well out of school that are probably in that position but don't have somebody that they can reach out to, or probably feel too embarrassed. And
absolutely,
we've got Money Talks in New Zealand as an example, which people can reach out to and get some financial mentorship and things like that. So I would encourage anybody that's just listened to that and thought, sheesh, I wish I had a teacher like that. We do still have people in the country that are there waiting for you to ring to say, hey, here's the help that you need. But I think the cool thing about that for that student is that once they get themselves out of that debt, they become the teacher.
Yes.
So then if their friends end up in the same situation, like, oh, I've been there, this is what I did.
Yes.
And all of a sudden then it's like, oh, okay. And that's where I think we have like true change of understanding money a bit more, because instead of hiding behind what we've got going on, we can talk to our friends with a little bit more confidence, or without that level of shame or hiding it, because our friends are actually willing to help. So, yeah, that's where I think it becomes really powerful. So in terms of what you guys are trying to achieve at the moment, are you trying to convince schools to put this in place? Like what's the focus at the moment for Sorted in Schools in your role?
So the focus at the moment is really spreading the word and letting people know about what we can offer. And it's also, it's really about supporting teachers and teaching them, because we know that obviously schools have a lot to teach.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure on teachers always. But yeah, we're not here to kind of add to their workload. We want to really support them. We want people to know that we exist. And for parents, I think parents obviously can have a big influence on what their students choose to take at school, so what subjects they choose to take. So parents can play a role in this as well. So if you, for example, find out that there is some financial education offered in your school, whether it's a financial capability class or it's actually offered within another course or integrated into another subject, that's where parents can get involved, find out what's being offered, and then if there is something, they can actually encourage their students to choose that subject. Because from talking to a lot of schools, I think there is more and more appetite for financial capability classes. I was, again, talking to a school in Auckland, and they started up a really cool financial capability program and started really small. They had one committed teacher who kicked it off more or less, and they found that it has really gained popularity. And I asked her why, and she just said, like you said, word of mouth from students. Students were saying, hey, I'm taking this great course. It's really interesting, and it's really practical, and I'm learning heaps, and encouraging other students to take it. And then, of course, word gets back to the parents as well. And so then parents start encouraging their kids to pick this course as well. And so, I think that appetite for those courses is growing, especially as more people are finding out about these courses and what's being offered, and they're becoming more common and more popular.
I'm going down to speak at a school in May, as I do each year, and I get to speak to the elite year 11, sorry. And I've kind of mixed up over the last couple of years the things that were spoken about, but definitely in the first year, I think they were quite fascinated by Warren Buffett and how much his money turned into as he got older, but also that a lot of his wealth was actually generated once he got past 65, which I think is then confusing because I think in New Zealand we talk about, right, get to 65 and that's kind of that's retirement, and then everybody figures it out from there. But I think they were quite fascinated by that. I think as well, one of them saw me instantly as being successful because I was talking about money, which I found quite fascinating and funny. But last year I got them to see if anyone was brave enough to stand up and talk about their goals. Is anyone gonna put it out there, what it is that they want to achieve in their life, and then a little bit of a chat around how I think that's still really important too, to be lifting each other up. But I said to them that one thing that I think is against them is that these days so much content is on their phone is American, and they're talking in millions and billions. And then I start asking them, okay, how many people do you think in New Zealand make over $1 million? And they're throwing out, oh yeah, 10%, 15% of people, and they're just so warped from the true data. So then I showed them some statistics around what people make in New Zealand, and they're kind of sitting there going, what? I think there needs to be, it's great that we can go on our phones and get all this information and stuff, but I do think they are unfortunately dealing with all of this content coming at them from all over the world, where they're seeing a YouTube star make $50 million or whatever, and then realise that that's very unlikely to make that level of money in New Zealand. However, it's not impossible. And I think that's the cool thing. And one of the modules that I saw that you guys had and you touched on before, Claire, was that one of them is actually about the options you have to increase your income.
Yep.
And I think that's really important to teach people at a younger age, because I think even now when we talk about money and finance in the media, for instance, when the economy starts getting tough, it's normally like, okay, what can we do to decrease our costs? And that's as far as the conversation goes. And then if we start talking about different ways to make more money, it's a little bit like, oh, well, let's stay away from that. But, I think that if you can unlock that piece, there are often a lot of answers there. And if we can be teaching people that at a younger age, then, it'd be great skills for them to pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved what you said about financial goals as well. I think that's so important. And that really comes back to your values around money too, and what's important to you and what you want to do with your life. And then being able to make your goals and make a plan to reach your goals. And yes, you're absolutely right that increasing your personal income can be a great way to obviously reach your goals, but it's easy to say, it's harder to do. So
teach me someone. Yeah.
So, and you're exactly right. There are all these stories about people who have done it, but it's harder to actually kind of think, okay, how do you do it? And this is where I am now. So how do I kind of work backwards? How do I do the planning? How do I set those goals so that they're practical and they're achievable and realistic goals?
Yeah.
And it's also, as you said, there's so much information out there. And we want young people to be able to think critically about that information that is coming to them, especially when it's information about money. What is legit? What is not legit? How do you choose? How do you look at an investment and think, is this okay? And is it okay for me? Is it legit? Is it the right thing for me to do? So as well, it's that critical thinking part that is a huge part of financial capability, but so important so that they can make good financial decisions.
Yeah, I think a good example of that, even over the last few decades, has been the amount of people that haven't taken a second form of income, second job, or looked at that avenue because they've been taught or picked up from somewhere that they get double taxed, or the secondary tax thing takes like most of the money. So what's the point of doing it? And I'm still like making content being like, that's not true. Here's how it works. It's not as bad as you think. You're still taxed on your overall income. And some people are just like, no, like you must be wrong. I'm like, okay. And I'll do a podcast on it then. Here's 15 minutes of me explaining it. But those are those little things I think that get ingrained in people, and they can take a long time to get out. And you think once people then think critically, get the correct information, they can't then just go back and go, damn it, there were 5 other opportunities I had to increase my income that I said no to because I was taught that secondary tax was, made it not worthwhile. Don't worry about that. It's a waste of time.
That's right. And how gutting to look back and go, okay, all those missed opportunities just because I was working with the wrong information at that time. We actually created some resources about tax. Inland Revenue approached us and asked if we wanted to make some resources about tax. So we said, yeah, okay. And we did. And they've been really popular, and students the teachers that I've spoken to who taught their classes about tax have said that the students are really engaged with the topic, and again they want to know, okay, like if I've got a side hustle, if I've got a second job or something, what's the deal? What do I need to know? I want to make sure I'm paying the right amount of tax, but not too much. You know what I mean? So they want to make the most out of their money, and they want to be able to work the way that they want to work. And you need to have an understanding of tax to be able to do that.
Right, I'll double down on my tax chat for the year 11s when I go back down to Wellington in May.
Bust it out.
Hey, any insights generally to Sorted as to what the most popular tools are, even outside of the student space and the Sorted in schools that you're involved in? Are you just wondering out of interest, maybe
That's a very good question. As I said, I've spoken to quite a few people who've used the money personality quiz, but I think I talk to a lot of teachers of all subjects as well, who say to me, oh yeah, I use Sorted. The calculators are great. So, and they say to me, yes, I use things like the investment calculators, and those are really cool to figure out how you can obviously grow your money over time and how long it's going to take, and just, you can play with those things and think, okay, if I can add a little bit more each week, what difference does it make? And it's so interesting to see the difference, and also for students to be able to see the difference in time. There's obviously a lot of information about retirement on there, and so I do end up talking to teachers. Teachers are thinking about their retirement too. So I talk to a lot of teachers who are on the Sorted website learning about retirement, and there's tools for retirement and the retirement calculator as well, and the KiwiSaver calculator and things like that. So just from my experience of talking to people about what they're doing there, I think those are some of the really popular ones.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good to see more people taking an interest in their money. Before we go, you did bring some notes. You haven't touched them once. I did suggest that you might not need them because I feel like you might know your subject, but is there anything in there, or maybe any statistics or data that you did want to touch on that I haven't brought up?
No, actually, I don't think there is. I think we've pretty much covered it there.
I'm going to ask a selfish question, going back to your English language teaching days.
Yes.
Someone told me off recently for using the word Kiwis. It's not Kiwis with an S. I'm not supposed to be saying, like, I'm trying to help 100,000 Kiwis improve their financial literacy. Apparently, I'm supposed to say 100,000 Kiwi with no S. Could you help me out here? So I might be really testing your...
Well, that's a good question, but technically Kiwi is not an English word, so I think that rule is correct though, but I'm probably, because it's a Te Reo Māori word, so I do think that if you're putting the S on it, that's how you create a plural out of an English word. So I would say that I'm sorry, I think they might have been right. I don't think you put an S on Kiwi.
That's fine. You can't offend me. I'm all for the learning. I thought you were about to say do what you want for a second there. I was thinking, okay, good. Yeah. No, just something that popped up in my inbox the other day. I'm forever getting someone giving me a lesson of something I don't know about. But I stopped doing English in year 12 because I thought I was quite good at it, and then I got some bad marks in creative writing, and I was like, oh, well, this subject can go. I'll pick up calculus. So I did all of the math classes plus economics, accounting, etc.
If it makes you feel better, I think creative writing is so hard.
Yeah, okay,
and it's also very hard to teach. And I feel like people love creative writing or they don't love it. And, maybe it's not everything is for you. So
Claire, I'm still maintaining I'm pretty good at it, okay? I've got the issues with the teacher that I had. Anyway.
Oh, that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. I see. Okay.
If people want to find out more about what it is that you guys are all doing out there in this great work, what's the best way for them to go and find it? And I think I'm talking here towards teachers, for instance, but it might even be parents to maybe educate some of the teachers that their children have, because they might just be unaware that these resources exist. So where can they go and have a look?
So go to sortedinschools.org.nz and have a look around. If you've got teacher friends, please send the link to your teacher friends and let them know that it exists. And especially if you're a teacher or if you're a school leader or if you're on the board of trustees and you would like some suggestions or advice about how you can implement the resources in your school or in your classroom, please send us an email. Our email address is on the website as well. It's schools@sorted.org.nz. So yeah, we're here to support you in your journey to teach financial education.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for the work that you're all doing out there. Hopefully we can get more people aware of the resources that are there, and I'm sure we'll catch up at some stage in the future and get an update on how it's all going.
Hope so. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
No worries.